The 2026 NHL Draft is less than 24 hours away, and after a hectic week of trades, picks being swapped all over the place, I thought, what better time to be dropping my final 2026 mock draft? To be honest, this class is very volatile, it's very hard to predict. I think after pick 13, the class kind of starts to drop off, but it's going to be a very interesting exercise to try to predict every pick from 1 to 32. So without further ado, let's get right into it. At first overall, to no one's surprise, the Toronto Maple Leafs select Gavin McKenna. He is clearly the player with the highest upside in the 2026 NHL draft. And if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs, you're not sure if Austin Matthews is going to want to stay in Toronto over the next few years. So you swing for that potential franchise player. And even if he doesn't turn out to be the star that some people expect him to be, he could still be a great 60 to 70 point player, a power play specialist, and just a skillful winger overall. While for his ceiling, he could maybe reach over 100 points a few times in his career. He is that good. His vision is off the charts. He has great hockey IQ. Now, his compete isn't always through the roof, but I think that with the right development, Gavin McKenna has all the makings to be a star in the NHL, and that's why Toronto picks him with the first overall pick. At second overall, the San Jose Sharks select Ivar Stenberg, the player with the highest floor in the 2026 NHL draft. This guy is probably going to come to the NHL as soon as next year, because in the SHL, the top flight of Swedish hockey, he was able to put up 33 points in 43 games. And just like Gavin McKenna, this guy has a great hockey IQ, but he's also willing to go into the dirty areas to go pick up the puck. I think his compete level is off the charts, and this is a very translatable game style for the NHL. Just a nifty winger to play on your top six. In my opinion, he has some point per game upside. Maybe not the high end skill of Gavin McKenna, and that's why I think McKenna is going to go ahead of Stenberg, but he's a very close second. They were fighting for that top spot all year, and with the San Jose Sharks trading left winger William Eklund earlier this week, it is all but guaranteed that Stenberg goes second overall, and that's a great pick, sorry, for Mike Greer's bunch. At third overall, the Vancouver Canucks select center Caleb Malhotra. Obviously, he is the son of Manny Malhotra, who was hired to be the Vancouver Canucks head coach on June 1st. And even though some people might say this is a Nepo pick or whatever, I think Caleb Malhotra would be a great selection whatsoever for the Canucks because he has all the makings to be a first line center in the NHL. He has some great mobility. He's a player that is very efficient in transition and is also responsible defensively. He was a demon in the back half of this season, nearly putting up 2 points per game in the playoffs for the OHL's Brantford Bulldogs. And I think for Vancouver, you don't have a ton of prospects that are under 23 years old on your forward core. So adding a potential 1C, an extremely valuable position in the NHL, would do wonders for this team. So Caleb Malhotra, even though his father is behind the bench and that could create some tension, I guess, in the locker room, Caleb Malhotra is a great prospect, and I see the Vancouver Canucks selecting him at third overall. And now, the first pick that was traded earlier this week, the fourth overall pick that now belongs to the Buffalo Sabres. And with that selection, they go with defenseman Chase Reed. And you might ask, why would Buffalo be going with a defenseman? Because they've already got their franchise guy in Rasmus Dahlin. They've got some solid surrounding pieces in Owen Power and Matthias Samuelsson. Well, all those guys are left-handed, sorry. And with Bowen Byram now being dealt to Chicago, well, there is a void to fill in that defense core. And although they've already got Radi Murtka, he was involved in trade talks earlier, notably at the trade deadline for Colton Parayko. So I think going with a right-handed defenseman would make a lot of sense. Obviously, Chase Reed is the prototypical defenseman of the modern NHL. He is a very mobile guy, could just jump up in the play and create a ton of offense because he's got a great hockey IQ, and he is also a potential power play quarterback behind Rasmus Dahlin. And even though sometimes his decision making kind of surprises me, he is mobile enough to just retreat and close gaps with his great defensive awareness. So, all in all, I think Chase Reed could be a solid top pair defenseman in the NHL. And even if he doesn't reach his true potential, he will still be a top four defenseman in the NHL. This is a no brainer for the Buffalo Sabres. I would go with Chase Reed. At fifth overall, I see the New York Rangers selecting defenseman Carson Carrolls. And over the last 24 hours, there was a lot of traction about the New York Rangers potentially selecting defenseman Albert Smith. And although it wouldn't be an horrible pick for the New York Rangers, I just believe that Carl's has a lot more upside to offer because Carson Carrolls is a great two-way defenseman. He is extremely physical. He isn't afraid to lay the body, but he also was a great offensive threat in the WHL this year. And with his big frame at 6'2", if not 6'3", I think he has a very translatable game to the NHL. And he is also an above average skater. I think in the worst case, Carson Carrolls is a great two-way second pair defenseman, and if he reaches his true ceiling, he could be a top pair shutdown defenseman playing alongside more of a shifty guy. So that would be an amazing pairing, and I'm just in love with Carson Carroll's game. I am very high on him, and with New York that are just starting a retool, a heavy retool, it would be a great decision to go with a potential, maybe not franchise defenseman, but future elite guy. That would be a home run selection, in my opinion. But maybe James Dolan doesn't want to do that. The owner of the New York Rangers isn't that kind of guy. We'll see where they go, but I think Carson Carrolls would be the best pick available on the board. At 6 overall, that's where Vigo Bjork ends up going. He would be a member of the Calgary Flames in that case, and I think this would be an amazing fit for the Flames because they've already got their potential franchise defenseman in Zane Parekh, although it was a rocky first season for Parekh at the pro level, and they've got their true elite goaltender in Dustin Wolf. But they're missing that key piece on the forward side of things, and I think Vigo Bjork could be that. In my opinion, he could reach point per game, and he is also a very shifty winger that isn't scared to go into dirty areas to go pick up that puck. He is just a pocket version of Ivar Stenberg, and I think he could contribute in a top six in no time because even though he didn't put up the same numbers as Stenberg this year, he was able to find his niche at the pro level in the SHL, and I think he would be a great fit for Calgary, especially because he plays center but also can be a winger. So that gives you lineup flexibility. The only argument against him, he's 5'10" and he plays like he's bigger, in my opinion. So that shouldn't be the reason why he falls. But sometimes NHL's GMs are just dumb. So they might let him fall even further. But if you're Calgary and Vigo Bjork is still there, please take him. He could be a great forward in a few years, and you shouldn't miss out on Vigo Bjork. At 7th overall, the Seattle Kraken select defenseman Albert Smits. And I've got to remind you this, those are my own predictions, but they are based on what I think teams will end up doing, not my own personal rankings. And if you've been taking a close look at Seattle's moves over the last few years, they seem to think that they're a team that is one or two players away from the Stanley Cup. So even though they're at the bottom of the standings for the last 3 seasons, to be honest. So I think they might go with the more pro-ready guy. Obviously, they've got a metric ton of centers in their prospect pool, so I don't think they'll be going with a forward this time around. But selecting a defenseman like Albert Smith could make some sense, sorry, for their potential goal. But in my opinion, Smiths, although playing at the pro level this year, even being a part of the Olympics, just doesn't have that high ceiling potential top pair defenseman. He could be a great shutdown guy, but he has some work to do on his hockey awareness. especially on the offensive side of things. So I just don't see that high end upside to take him that high. But I think a team like Seattle could be in love with his profile, and that's why I think they select him seventh overall. With the eighth pick, the Winnipeg Jets select defenseman Kian Veroff. And although I've got my personal concerns about Veroff, this could be a home run pick for the Winnipeg Jets. Because, yes, they have got Josh Morrissey on the left side of their defense, but whether it is on the current roster or in the pipeline, they don't have much on the other side. And Kian Veroff reminds me a bit of Evan Bouchard at times, a guy that is great in the offensive zone, has a very heavy shot, but he's got some clear skating concerns, and sometimes he just makes some boneheaded plays. But with his size at 6'4", over 210 pounds, I think he has some raw skill that just can't be matched in this draft. And if Vancouver is able to develop him properly, they could have a true number one defenseman in the future. This is a lower floor, higher ceiling kind of guy. I'm not the highest on Veroff if you've taken a look at my draft rankings on Instagram, but still, I don't think Winnipeg Jets passes on Keaton Veroff if he's still available at 8th overall. At ninth overall, with a pick acquired in the William Eklund trade earlier this week, the San Jose Sharks select defenseman Daxon Rudolph. This was San Jose's main objective by acquiring this pick. They're in need of a true potential number one or at least top pair defenseman to play with Sam Dickinson in the future. And I think Daxon Rudolph, especially on the right-handed side of the defense, could make a lot of sense. Although he has some hockey IQ concerns, especially on the defensive side of things, he is a defenseman that isn't scared to hit at all. He also is good at closing gaps. I'm just not the biggest fan of his positioning in the defensive zone. Sometimes he retreats a bit too much, and that gives too much time to the other forwards. But he could be a solid power play quarterback in the future. He scored over 20 goals in the WHL this year as a defenseman. So, all in all, this is another lower floor, higher ceiling kind of guy. But for San Jose, you keep building on that defense. You were close to make the playoffs last year, and you've got picks 2 and 9. Just take shots at the potential positions you need. And if it doesn't work out, you can trade later. But I kind of like Daxon Rudolph's profile, and I think he will be an NHLer whatsoever. So don't galaxy brain this. Take Daxon Rudolph. At 10th overall, I see the Nashville Predators selecting winger Wyatt Cullen. And this time, I'm putting my faith into Chris McFarland's group because over the past few years, Barry Trotz just seemed to be scared to select the high-end talent in the past drafts. And to be honest, if you're taking a look at Nashville's prospect pool, they're lacking a true potential separator in the future. And I think Wyatt Cullen has the potential to be that guy because he's a beast in transitional play. He is an amazing skater. Over the past 2 years, I think he grew from 5'5" to 6'1". This guy is just a unicorn, and I think if he reaches his true potential, he could be a point per game winger in the NHL with some insane transitional efficiency. He's a great playmaker as well. He reminds me a bit of Nick Ehlers, so I think it would be a great fit for the Nashville Predators who need that true game breaker in the future, although they might go defense because they've also got a bit of a problem there. I think you don't overthink this. Take the best player on the board. His name is Wyatt Cullen. At 11th overall, with the first of their 4 picks in this draft. Yes, you've heard that right. The St. Louis Blues select center Tynan Lawrence. And this guy's case is very interesting because last year he was over a point per game in the USHL with the Muskegon Lumberjacks, was the MVP of the playoffs, and started out great in the 2025-2026 USHL season, but he transferred to Boston University mid-season, and there he wasn't quite able to find his step with 7 points in 18 games, but still, that team was honestly dog shit this year, so I think there is a bit of a an effect on his play, if that makes sense. But still, when I watch Tynan Lawrence play, although he is great in transitional play, I just believe that he lacks some true offensive creation to be a number one center in the NHL. But still, he has a very responsible game defensively, and he could be a solid 2C in the future. And worst case scenario, with his skating, he will be an NHLer for a long time. So St. Louis, they've got a metric ton of wingers, but maybe not as much of center prospects. So you get that guy in Tynan Lawrence. At 12th overall, the New Jersey Devils select Ethan Belchitz. Although I think they might trade this pick, the main issues for the New Jersey Devils over the past few seasons have been around their depth scoring. And Ethan Belchitz is a 6'5", 230-pound winger that isn't scared to go into dirty areas, to go pick the puck for his more skilled teammates, and he is a great puck protector with his big frame, but he's also a great scorer in his own right. So all in all, I think Ethan Belchitz has all the makings to be a great power forward, a middle sixer. Those pieces are so crucial to Stanley Cup winning teams, and I think he would be a great fit for the Devils. Maybe aspire to be what Timo Meyer was intended in that 2023 trade. The New Jersey Devils didn't get quite what they were expecting, although I don't think Belchitz has the same potential as a Timo Meyer on the offensive side of things. He could be a solid replacement in that side of things. So Ethan Belchitz at 12th makes a lot of sense for the Devils. With pick number 13, the New York Islanders select defenseman Ryan Lynn. And this is a very interesting prospect because Ryan Lynn, although being an undersized defenseman at 5'11", this guy has some of the highest hockey IQ in this draft. His defensive awareness is off the charts. He is always well positioned to be closing gaps, to intercept passes. So I think he could be a very good standout defenseman for the New York Islanders, but he's also a stud in the offensive zone. He doesn't have quite the offensive ceiling of a Keaton Veroff, a Carson Carrolls, or whatsoever, but still, I think he could be a solid second pair defenseman in the NHL that is trusted in all situations. Second power play, penalty kill minutes. I think he would be a great fit for the New York Islanders that badly need a right-handed defenseman, maybe to play alongside a Matthew Schaefer in the future. And I think Ryan Lynn has all the makings to be that guy for Matthew Darsh and his bunch. With pick number 14, the Columbus Blue Jackets select winger Oscar Hemming. And although that selection might be controversial because the Jackets went out this afternoon to acquire a power forward in Valery Nichushkin, their GM, that is Don Waddell, just loves to select his big guys. Whether it was Caden Lindstrom in the 2024 NHL Draft, now acquiring Nichushkin, I think this is his mentality to build a potential playoff team, and Oscar Hemming fits the bill. He is just that net crasher that isn't scared to go into the dirty areas along the board. Maybe he doesn't have the highest of offensive creation, which makes me think that he maybe isn't that future 60-point second liner power forward, but still he could be a useful middle sixer for the Columbus Blue Jackets as they try to build a playoff team around their franchise defenseman, Zach Werenski. At 15th overall, the St. Louis Blues select defenseman Malte Gustafsson. And honestly, I think Gustafsson could be going higher in this draft, but with the different positional needs of the teams above St. Louis, there is a certain possibility that this guy ends up falling to 15. And honestly, he is the complete package of a future defenseman in the NHL. He is a 6'4" defenseman that is a very solid skater, and he has a true defensive skill set, whether that is reach with his stick, his positioning. In my opinion, if he reaches his true potential, he could be a potential top four, maybe even top pair shutdown defenseman, but he isn't inept offensively. He's got some solid offensive awareness. I'm a big fan of Malte Gustafsson, and I think this would be an home run pick for the St. Louis Blues. I don't think there is a way this guy ends up falling short of the NHL because he is already pro ready, playing at the SHL level this year. And all in all, he has all the tools to be a future top four defenseman in the National Hockey League. With back to back picks at 16th overall, the St. Louis Blues select Nikita Klepov. When you look at St. Louis prospect pool, they've got a ton of young forwards, but there is a common element that just pops to my eyes. They maybe don't have a true game breaker on the offensive side of things. Yes, they have a number one center in Robert Thomas, but can Robert Thomas be a number one center on a Stanley Cup winning team? I'm not so sure about it. So when you've got four first round picks, I think you need to swing for upside, and Nikita Klepov could be a potential suitor because he put up 97 points in 67 OHL games this year. He's got some hockey IQ through the roof. This guy, although having some skating concerns, is uber skilled. He is a great playmaker and has a solid vision. The main concern with Nikita Klepov is his compete level, and he's pretty much a black hole defensively. Yes, this would be more of a unidimensional, a guy that is only efficient on one side of the puck, but still, although his floor is extremely low, in my opinion, he could simply not be an NHLer. He also has the chance to be a 60 point at least top six player. So I think St. Louis, after taking a potential middle six center and a solid defenseman, you swing for the fences with a guy like Nikita Klepov. With pick number 17, the Los Angeles Kings select Adam Novotny. And for the Kings, it looks like they're a team that wants to win now because they made an aggressive move by going out and getting Artemi Panarin back in February. They also hired a veteran coach like Peter Laviolette. So Adam Novotny, I think, is a guy that could be pro ready in a few years because he's already a very mature skater at 6'1", if I'm not mistaken, and he has some decent offensive skill. I think he could just be a great middle sixer, 25 goal, 25 assist kind of guy. Great skater. I think he is set to have a very long career in the NHL. And a GM like Ken Holland would love to select a piece like Adam Novotny because they are so crucial to Stanley Cup winning teams. And I think he could fit into their middle six in maybe 2 or 3 years. So that would be a solid pick by the Los Angeles Kings. With the 18th overall pick, the Washington Capitals select defenseman Juho Piiparainen. And you might say this is a bit early for Juho Piiparainen to be going, but this guy is a tank. He is a 6'4" Finnish defenseman, and he is already basically pro ready, playing mostly at the top flight of Finnish hockey this year in the Liga. And let's be honest, Piiparainen doesn't have the highest offensive pop. This guy would be a shutdown defenseman in the NHL. He has a great reach with his stick, and although he's maybe not the best skater, I think he could be a decent stay-at-home defenseman for the Washington Capitals. And with Matt Roy aging in the next few years and Trevor Van Riemsdyk being over 35 at this point, I think Piiparainen could be slotting in that third pair role really quickly for Washington. So all in all, I see the vision for Washington. Piiparainen may be going a bit early, but just an amazing fit for the team because they've got a haul of four depths, and Jacob Chikrin would be their number one offensive defenseman. So you surround him with more reliable pieces, and Juho Piiparainen would be that guy, in my opinion. With pick number 19, the Utah Mammoth select Tommy Blyle, defenseman from the Moncton Wildcats. And this guy is just a potential game breaker on the offensive side of things for the Utah Mammoth defense because he put up 81 points in 63 games this year, if I'm not mistaken. I was able to see him live a couple of times, and although he has a lot of work to do on his defensive game, I thought it improved every time I was able to watch it. And as I said, this guy could jump up in the play in a finger snap. He is an offensive threat for any team. And for the Utah Mammoth, yes, they have got some two-way guys like Mihail Sergachev and Sean Dursey, but they maybe don't have that true offensive defenseman that could be the quarterback for their future power play. And I think Tommy Blyle potentially fits that bill. So it would be a solid pick by the Utah Mammoth at 19th. With the 20th overall pick, the Buffalo Sabres add to their Swedish Mafia by selecting center Alexander Command. This guy has been a riser all throughout this draft, notably for his performance at the U18 World Championships. He was potentially the best player in the tournament, and this guy is very reliable on both sides of the puck. The reason I think he might go a bit later in this draft, he isn't the most creative with the puck on his stick. I think he could be one of the best potential third line centers in the NHL. And if not, he could be a reliable bottom sixer. I just don't believe that he has the potential to be a top six forward, but still, those pieces are crucial to Stanley Cup winning teams, and Alexander's command as compete level is simply off the charts. He is a dog, and you want some of those guys on your team. Buffalo already has a solid amount of game breakers, whether that is Tage Thompson, potentially Consta Helenius. I'm in love with his profile, so you sure out your bottom six with a guy like Alex Command. At 21st overall, the Philadelphia Flyers select a defenseman that I've been a fan of all throughout this draft process in Adam Gollier. This guy showed out for Team Slovakia at the World Juniors, and when I watched him play earlier this year and even after the World Juniors, I thought he did more of the same. This guy is a 6'3" defenseman frame that is also a decent skater. This guy is mostly a responsible defender. He has a knack for closing gaps. He's also got a great stick to cut off passing lanes, all throughout a responsible defender who is also able to put up some scoring in the offensive zone. So I think he could be a solid second pair, two-way defenseman in the NHL. And even though he might not reach his true ceiling, he would still be an NHLer, in my opinion. A solid bottom pair defenseman that is more angled toward defense. So if you're Philadelphia, you've already got a few undersized defensemen in Cam York and Jamie Drysdale. You go with a bigger guy that is also very mobile and Adam Gollier and has some experience at the pro level. I think this could be an home run pick for Philadelphia. With pick number 22, the Pittsburgh Penguins select center Ilya Morozov. And this guy is a low floor, high ceiling kind of prospect because although he is 6'3" and over 200 pounds, he has some clear skating issues. But a GM like Cal Dubas isn't scared to select some of those guys. He did the same last year with Will Horkoff, and this selection is already looking amazing after a great season from Horkoff at the college level. So I think he would do more of that kind of build with Ilya Morozov. This guy has a decent amount of skill, is able to score goals as well. He has a solid shot, and I think he could be a solid middle six center for the Pittsburgh Penguins going forward. Obviously, this is more of a project, but once Crosby, Malkin, Letang are retired, the Pittsburgh Penguins will want to swing for high upside, and I think this could be the potential selection with Ilya Morozov. This is a risky selection by Pittsburgh, but you're probably not contending for a cup, so you don't need to be going for a more pro-ready guy. Take a shot at the higher upside, and Ilya Morozov fits that bill. At 23, the Boston Bruins select Xavier Villeneuve from the QMJHL. This guy has drawn a ton of comparables with Lane Hudson this year, and I can understand why. Because both are potential power play quarterbacks in the NHL. Well, Lane Hudson already is, but Xavier Villeneuve could also be that guy in the future. But I don't see the same shiftiness from Xavier Villeneuve. He sometimes gets pounded at the blue line, but still, his hockey IQ is off the charts, mostly in the offensive zone, and he's got some solid edges. I don't I just don't think he is a potential Lane Hudson in the making. He also doesn't have the same defensive awareness. He sometimes gets caught flat footed. But for Boston, you're looking to add some pop to your blue line, maybe a guy to play with a Charlie McAvoy in the future. You've already got a decent amount of prospects on the forward side of things with James Haggins leading the way. So this time you go defenseman and you swing for the fences with a guy like Xavier Villeneuve because you're potentially not going for a cup, a bit like Pittsburgh. So you swing for the high upside, and Villeneuve could certainly be that. Potentially your power play one quarterback of the future, who knows? He also might not be an NHLer for the reasons I've presented. This is a low floor, high ceiling, boomer bust kind of prospect, but if you're Boston, it makes a ton of sense to go for Villeneuve. At 24th overall, the Vancouver Canucks select Elton Hermansson. This guy potentially has top 5 hands in this year's draft. He is uber skilled, has amazing vision, mostly to find his open teammates in the offensive zone. His passing is also off the charts, and in my opinion, he's got an underrated shot. The problem with Hermansson, he is not the most involved defensively kind of player. Maybe not a black hole, but he has a lot of work to do on that side of the puck, and his compete level sometimes leaves to be desired. Obviously, those are parts of the game that can be worked on, and if you're Vancouver, you were the worst team in the NHL last year, you're going through a nuclear rebuild, and you've already selected a center like Caleb Malhotra based on this mock draft. So this time you go for a winger. You don't have much of those in the pipeline, and you swing for the fences, just like Pittsburgh and Boston, for a very skilled guy that could be a potential member of your top 6 in the future. Elton Hermansson, although being a boomer bust guy, I love the way that he plays hockey, and he is a highlight reel potential player. Don't overthink this. Swing for high upside. You're at 24th overall. There isn't a guarantee to select an NHLer, so go for Hermansson. At 25th overall, with a pick acquired in the Brady Tkachuk deal, the Ottawa Senators select Marcus Nordmark. This guy is a potential middle six sniper in the making, and for Ottawa, it has been a true issue over the past few years. Although they've got a great top six most of the time, they aren't able to get as much scoring for their bottom six, especially their third line, and I think Marcus Nordmark could fill that billing. He is a very intelligent player with the puck on his stick, and he can find those open lanes for teammates. But if he is the best option, he isn't scared to rip it top cheese. And I think this is what Ottawa would be looking for, especially after replacing a Brady Tkachuk. You're looking for a guy that has upside to maybe fill a Brady Tkachuk role in the aggregate, with a William Eklund. You would have Nordmark and potentially go after a Jake DeBrusk in the offseason. Marcus Nordmark would be a very interesting project for a team that has a young core and is looking to compete over the next few years. At 26th overall, the New York Rangers select a center from Finland in Oliver Suvanto. This guy has said it multiple times in the media. He shapes his game after Alexander Barkov. And although he is far behind in terms of offensive creation, I think Suvanto could be a reliable third line center in the NHL. This guy is a very responsible defender. He is a pretty big frame at 6'3", and he's also not inept offensively. He has a decent scoring touch, so I think he could be a solid bottom sixer for the New York Rangers. And this team already has a lot of contributors in the top 6, whether that is older guys like Vincent Trocheck, Mika Zibanejad, JT Miller, and you've also got younger bucks with higher potential in Gabe Perreault, Alexis Lafreniere. So after selecting a defenseman at 5th overall in Carson Carrolls, you round out your bottom 6 that has been an issue over the past few years by selecting Oliver Suvanto. With pick number 27, the San Jose Sharks hit a home run of a pick, in my opinion, in Maddox Dagenet from the QMJHL. This guy is a big center at 6'4", and he's also risen to be a solid offensive contributor for a pretty dog shit team, Quebec Rempart team this year. His compete level is through the roof. He is a dog, and he's also a very solid puck protector. Maybe he doesn't have the offensive ceiling of a top six or at least regular top six kind of player, but I think he could be a middle six center for the San Jose Sharks in the future, behind Macklin Celebrini, behind Michael Misa. So potentially a third line center. And I think at 27th overall, this would be an amazing value for San Jose, who completes a great draft with Stenberg, Rudolph, and now Dagenet. At 28th overall, the Montreal Canadiens select a prospect that I have liked all throughout this draft process in Simas Ignatavicius. This guy maybe doesn't have the most offensive pop, but his motor is simply off the charts. This guy is very competitive, and he is also a responsible defender. He played at the pro level in Switzerland this year, so I think for Montreal, that is going to be a very competitive team over the next few years. You want to have a potential bottom sixer that could be a two-way third liner, maybe able to put up 30 to 40 points in the NHL. You've already got your core locked up with Suzuki, Caulfield, Slavkovsky, Demidov, Hudson. You go with a solid surrounding pieces in Simas Ignatavicius, who has, in my opinion, pretty much a guaranteed path to be an NHLer in the future, even though that is in a fourth line role. I think Montreal is more looking for a role player than to swing for the fences, and Simas Ignatavicius fills that bill. At 29th overall, the St. Louis Blues select Brooks Rogowski from the OHL. This guy is a 6'7" center in the OHL. And if you're the St. Louis Blues, you've got so many goddamn picks already, but you maybe don't have the biggest center prospect pool, so you go after a potential unicorn in Brooks Rogowski, a bit like Dean Latorno was for the Boston Bruins 2 years ago. And although he maybe doesn't have the highest pop to his offensive game, Brooks Rogowski is a responsible center. I think he could be used as a penalty killer in the NHL and be an important piece of the St. Louis Blues bottom six going forward. At 30th overall, the Calgary Flames select Liam Ruck from the Medicine Hat Tigers. And obviously, Ruck is a very interesting case because he's got a twin brother playing in the WHL on the same line as him, and Marcus, his twin, might be selected in the early goings of the second round. So this reminds me of a Sedin twin story, and those guys might be selected by the same team. It would be electric, but for Ruck, he was one of the best scorers in the WHL this year. He is a great finisher, has all the makings to be a potential middle six sniper. Although I don't think he has the highest of ceilings, it would be just an amazing tale to be seeing him play with his brother, whether that is in Vancouver, in Calgary, teams that have multiple picks in that range. And those guys grew up in Western Canada, so it would be amazing to see them go in either of those destinations. I think Calgary will be the team to snag the Rock Brothers. With pick number 31, the Carolina Hurricanes select Casey Mutrin. This guy just fits the DNA of the Carolina Hurricanes. He is a fast skater, a great forechecker, a guy with a very high motor, and I think he could slot in pretty well on their bottom six. Obviously, the Canes are Stanley Cup champions, but they are known to be a great developmental franchise, so I think they could make another dog, maybe a Jackson Blake kind of mold, into Casey Mutrin. He has a decent amount of offensive skill while being responsible defensively. So I just believe that the Carolina Hurricanes will be able to turn another one of those studs into great players, and Casey Mutrin is next on their list. And to close out the first round of the 2026 NHL Draft, the Ottawa Senators select defenseman Maxim Sokolovsky. Obviously, this guy is mostly known for his height because he is 6'7", but also his 240 pounds. Still, he was able to show some offensive promise this year with 8 points in 44 games. You might have seen a clip of him fighting with Brady Martin, which is a top five pick from last year. So this guy isn't scared to throw the body. He's also a decent skater for his size. And if you're Ottawa, Thomas Chabot's contract is coming to an end pretty soon. I'm not certain he's going to stay in Ottawa. So you swing for a left-handed defenseman that has potential to be maybe not Zdeno Chara, but just a wish version of Zdeno Chara, if that makes sense. In Maxim Sokolovsky, you swing for the high upside. You've already got a pick, and you selected a guy that fits your biggest need in Marcus Nordmark. Swing for the fences to close out the first round with Maxim Sokolovsky. So that's how I see the first round of the 2026 NHL draft going. This is my final mock draft after maybe 12 editions of this on my Instagram. We are finally here. I am a big fan of NHL prospect content, and if you want to see more, go on my Instagram page at 99's Office. I'll put the tag in the description so you can take a look. So, let me know what you think about this mock draft. Am I wrong? Do you think my picks make sense? All up to you to tell me. Obviously, this is a very volatile draft class. It's very hard to predict, but I am hyped for the 2026 NHL draft, and we will have a ton of content coming soon about it. So, from the 99's office, thank you and see you soon. Peace.